Bennett Kessler filed this report after a series of closed sessions with the Mammoth School Board. Superintendent Rich Baccia has resigned, and that was effective on Friday, March 1st. Now, Board Vice Chair Gloria Vasquez said she could not comment on Baccia's sudden departure. Said Vasquez, quote, "Members of the board don't talk about personnel matters in public," end quote. Now, what is known is in a letter issued by the school board to the staff. Now, this is signed by all board members, and the letter dated Thursday, February 28th says, quote, "We wish to inform you of a significant event that took place at last night's board meeting. Superintendent Baccia informed the Board of Education that he will be leaving the district effective Friday, March 1st, end quote. Now, the letter does go on to say that Baccia shared with the board that, quote, "This was a very difficult personal decision," end quote. Now, the letter wishes Baccia well and thanks him for his commitment to address instructional topics. There is no stated reason in the letter for Baccia's immediate departure. Now, board members do say in the letter that they are taking action to identify an interim superintendent and are confident they will have someone in place within the next few weeks. The board planned to consider this issue in a special board meeting and closed session that was scheduled for this afternoon. Now, in June of 2010, Mammoth School Board had announced that Baccia was the finalist in their superintendent search. They had interviewed 6 finalists that they called highly qualified. Officials had also visited Baccia's previous school district in Pasadena and said he had worked as a principal at elementary, middle, and high school levels. Well, Bennett Kessler also filed this report. According to the State of California website, Governor Jerry Brown has signed an agreement that authorizes a Class 3 gambling casino that allows for up to 800 slot machines at Fort Independence Indian Reservation. Now, the 93-page agreement gives permission for 800 gaming devices, percentage card games, and games under the state lottery. The agreement specifically prohibits roulette or any game involving dice. Now, the agreement says Fort Independence will have to make quarterly payments based on net win into a special distribution fund, which will be used to pay state regulatory costs and grants and to deal with gambling addiction. Now, before a casino can be built, the Fort Independence tribe will have to perform what is called a Tribal Environmental Impact Report, and that's to address impacts on the local community and the county. Mitigations will have to be spelled out. Now, the building of the casino itself, according to the agreement, must meet state and county codes and regulations. Many other details are laid out in the 93-page document, including licensing, inspections, and audits. Now, it says the tribe will share up to 10% of the revenue with other tribes that are not gaming or that are otherwise not substantially benefiting from gaming. Now, Fort Independence Tribal Chairman Israel Naylor was not available for comment from Sierra Wave Media. Other spokesmen did confirm that there are plans to build a casino to conduct Class 3 gaming in the vicinity of the current Travel Plaza and campground. Bennett Kessler filed this story, noting the Bishop community eagerly awaiting the reopening of the long-closed Cottonwood Plaza shopping center, and workmen and equipment over the past weeks have prompted questions. Sierra Wave Media talked with the project architect and general contractor. Now, Bishop architect Tom Shaniel said he understands the owners are in talks with several prospective tenants. He said assuming tenants are confirmed, specific and individual improvements would start on the interior in June. Now, Shaniel confirmed that efforts are concentrated on the front building with plans to actually open in the fall. He said, quote, "We are working on ideas that can go public," end quote. Now, crews have demolished the interior of the large front building and are working on a common grease inceptor to encourage restaurants to locate on the lower level. Now, last fall, reports confirmed that majority owner of the plaza, Liz Eslamaya, developed a consortium and formed Yaney Corner LLC to move ahead with the plaza renovation. She hired Rudolph Construction of Bishop as the general contractor to build and oversee operations. Now, Ken Abbott, president of Rudolph Construction, said that his crews did take out dividing walls and flooring in the front building and are now at work on a main grease interceptor that would be used by several tenants. Now, earlier crews focused on underground utilities. Electrical work is complete, as are fire sprinklers and monitors. Rudolph crews will also focus on preparing the outside of the plaza for new paint. Architect Shaniel had earlier said that new and improved landscaping would change the feel of the plaza. He had said landscape architect Josephine McProud and Associates of Nevada City was hired to do the work. Well, Bennett Kessler also filed this report. Craig Nelson worked for the Mono County Sheriff's Department between 2005 and 2011. Nelson said he ended his 20-year law enforcement career because of the, quote, abuse of power, end quote, in the Mono Sheriff's Department and a culture of selective enforcement and cronyism. Mono Sheriff Ralph Obenberger describes his department as well-managed and thoughtful in its handling of employees and the public. Now, Nelson responded to the case of Mono Deputy John Madrid, who was fired, made to sit in a chair for 8 hours a day, and then exonerated of any wrongdoing and reinstated by an arbitrator. Now, former Sergeant Nelson said, quote, the Madrid case is but a tiny fraction of the proverbial tip of the iceberg when it comes to personnel matters. What happened to Madrid has happened to many others to one degree or another, end quote. Now, several other officers no longer with the Mono Sheriff's Department confidentially confirmed Nelson's comments. They described bullying, cronyism, and selective law enforcement. Nelson said there are two kinds of people at the Mono Sheriff's Department, those who want to go somewhere else and those who can't go somewhere else. Now, in a two-page written statement responding to Nelson's comments, Sheriff Obenberger describes a completely different department. To allegations of bullying and favoritism, the sheriff said that if a problem is solved, quote, it is not selective law enforcement as long as you are taking care of public safety, end quote. He said employees who do not respond to instruction may require discipline. Obenberger said, quote, although some of those individuals on that end of the spectrum might want to absolve themselves of personal responsibility and call it cronyism, it is actually good management practices, end quote. Now, Nelson and other sources close to the situation maintain that the atmosphere in the Sheriff's Department was uncertain and hostile. Sheriff Obenberger said, quote, I do not believe there is a hostile environment in our office, nor was there ever, end quote. Now, officers willing to speak to Sierra Wave Media point to the arbitrator's opinion in the Deputy Madrid case as clear evidence of biased and mean treatment. Now, one other report from two informed sources said that the Mono Sheriff's Administration officers engaged in a punishment called the Gauntlet. And this is which employees were forced to sit silently while higher-ups screamed degrading statements at them about something they didn't like. Sheriff Obenberger did not comment on Sierra Wave's question about that. One former officer said deputies were, quote, frequently subjected to this demeaning practice, end quote. Now, you can read much more on this story on our website, sierrawave.net. We'll be back with more news.